Congregation, it's an honor and a privilege to stand before you on this Lord's Day morning. And if you are a visitor, we are indeed delighted that you have chosen to share your time with us this morning. And if you are looking for a church home, we want to let you know this morning that we are very welcoming here at the Waters Road Church of Christ and honored by your presence. And if we can help you in making that decision, you can visit with one of our shepherds here or just ask some of our members some questions about us and our church family, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. How many of you have picked up a Bible study outline? If you have those this morning, raise those up in the air. I'm glad you've got those so that you can follow along with us in this morning's lesson and take notes so that you can spend this time of study along with me this morning. Now, if you'll bear with me just a second, I've got something I've got to do. What do you think when you see that? Here, Billy, catch. One. Let's see if he's good enough. You better put the other one down. You ain't going to catch it with both. Oh, bad catch. All right. When you see sticks of dynamite, what runs through your mind? Do you think of peace? Let's ask that question again. When you think of dynamite, do you think of peace? Most of you would say no. Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you about a man by the name of Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel was a rare kind of breed. He was, in fact, a genius. Despite only attending 18 months of school during his lifetime, he held over 350 different patents, the most famous of which was for dynamite. While we think of dynamite as an element of war and violence, Nobel set about creating it for one reason: safety. You see, in Nobel's day, the leading explosive of the day was nitroglycerin. And those of you who understand nitroglycerin understand it was notoriously unpredictable. In fact, it caused a serious explosion at Nobel's own factory that killed 5 people, including his own brother. In creating dynamite, Nobel was creating a tool that would have substantial explosive power for the mining industry, as well as prevent future deaths like his own brothers. In fact, despite the facts of our misgivings today about those sticks of dynamite and how they could be used for violence, they are, in fact, one of the very inventions that eventually led to what we now know as the Nobel Peace Prize. Today I want to ask you the question regarding your Christian life. If someone were to characterize your Christian life, would they say that your life as a Christian is dynamite? Or is it a dud? Now, we just finished up 4th of July, celebrating the 4th of July with our friends and family. And back in the 80s, we were all about shooting those fireworks. In fact, even in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, right here in Houston, you could shoot fireworks in your neighborhood. How many of you remember doing that? In fact, I had a neighbor in Channelview who spent so much money on fireworks on the 4th of July, true story, he couldn't pay his rent the next month and got evicted. But the worst thing I remember as a child was when we would spend that money on fireworks, which my dad would always say, that's wasting money. I didn't agree to that until I became a dad. You know how that goes, right? But as a child, I remember reaching over and lighting that firework, expecting there to be a marvelous display, and all I got was Nobody likes a dud. So as we look at this morning, the first thing that we've got to understand is that there is the possibility that some of us in this room have dynamite faith, and some of us may be simply living a dud life. Before we go any further, I want to make the opportunity for Scripture. I want to make the opportunity available for James to show us a promise from his Word. It's at the top of your Bible study outline. It says this: you see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. Folks, if there's anybody in this room this morning who thinks you're going to go to heaven by simply believing in God, one day you will be sadly mistaken. But the truth is, there's a lot of people that really believe this. They really and truly believe sincerely that all they have to do is profess faith in God, and that will take care of it all. But let's look at our two words of the day, dynamite and dud. Do you know the difference? Well, you got to look at the definitions. They're here on your Bible study outline. The definition of something that is dynamite: an extremely impressive or exciting person or thing. The definition of something that is a dud: a person or thing that is disappointingly ineffective or unsuccessful. With that in mind, let's ask the question this morning. That may be Webster's definition, but what is God's definition? What is the spiritual definition of faith that is a dud? Now, James begins this section by asking a couple of questions. Look at verse 14. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can that faith save him? James does not say if someone has faith. He says if someone says they have faith. There's a difference. It is one thing to talk about faith and another thing to put it into practice. They claim to have faith, but they do not show that faith via their works. What good is it for a man to say, I have faith, if his actions do not prove it? Can that faith save him? The answer is no. That kind of faith cannot save a person. Why? In verse 15 and 16, James explains why that kind of faith cannot save. He says, one of your Christian brothers or sisters is without clothes or food. You know their need and you have the means to help them, but without giving them the things they need, you just tell them, I believe God can supply all your needs. I pray that God will provide you clothes and food. You see, folks, you know that such a desperate situation as that demands an immediate response. But all you've done is speak some kind words to them, maybe a few Christian cliches, because we have an armor load of Christian cliches nowadays. You know how to say the right thing, but you do not do the right thing. James is asking them, what good is that? What good is it if you see someone in need and simply say, man, I feel for you, but you don't do a single thing to help? that you're walking out of these doors and you go to get in your car and you do the unthinkable. You happen to slam your fingers in the car door. Oh, that hurts, doesn't it? Now you're standing there in agony and blood is coming out of your fingers, and I walk up to you and I say, oh, that's got to hurt. I hope it stops bleeding. If it does, I'll see you tonight. Did my kind words help you out at all? No. What you really need is for me to go back in the building, find some first aid, bandage you up, give you some ice, and send you on your way, right? That's what we would do because we love one another, right? It is by faith. It is by faith that we are justified, but listen carefully. But faith that justifies can never be alone. Let's say that again. It is by faith that we are justified, but faith that justifies can never be alone. James concludes his point in verse 17 by saying these words. So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Now let's talk about the word dead for a moment. Because the word that is translated dead in this passage comes from the Greek word meaning unfruitful or barren or non-productive. You see, that's describing the condition of a faith that is not accompanied by works. That kind of faith is a dud faith. It's a dead faith. And dead faith does not work. True faith, my friends, can never be alone. True faith can never be alone. Works must accompany that faith. People do not believe that we are saved. In our culture, they do not believe that we are truly saved if they do not see something productive and good and fruitful coming from our lives, because we all know the old saying, our actions speak louder than words. If you don't believe that our non-Christian friends and neighbors and co-workers are watching the way we conduct our lives, you're foolishly naive. Folks, they are watching you and they want to see, are you actually living what your faith professes you to be? And if you're not living what you say that you are, what do our friends and neighbors think about us? What do they title us? What do they call us? They say they're nothing more than a bunch of pretenders, a bunch of hypocrites. I don't want to be involved in that. Folks, let me make this very clear. Faith is not just a matter of what we say with our lips. It's not just a matter of what we say with our lips. It involves what we do with our lives. Real faith is more than just words of sympathy or feelings. It takes initiative to do something about it. It takes getting involved with other people. If you are a hermit crab and you think that type of hermit crab faith is going to get you to heaven, you will never get to heaven by faith alone. It just won't work that way. Let me ask you a question. If you are a part of the Waters Road Church of Christ this morning, do you have fellowship with other believers? Are you the type of person who gets here as late as you can and leaves as quickly as you can because you really don't want to be involved with anybody else in this room. Well, let me tell you, if you're going to be that type of person, no one in this church will ever feel like they can count on you. How many Christians in this room, I want you to be honest, how many of you feel right now that there are others in this room that if in the middle of the night you had an emergency, you could call on somebody in this room? I hope you have that. And I hope that you're also somebody that others in this room would feel very open to calling in case of an emergency. You see, our faith must be demonstrated by our works. You see, the very reason that we are saved is to do good works that God has prepared for us. The truly faithful are driven by an attitude of two things. They are compassion for other people, a desire to care for and see to the well-being of other people, but it also takes action. You may love somebody, but are you faithful enough to act on that love? Let me ask you that question. After talking about this dud faith, which doesn't take action, James talks about another kind of faith in verse 18 and 19. Now, before I give you what that faith is, let me stop right here. I want to say this, but I don't want it to hurt anybody's feelings. Or maybe I do, I don't know. Folks, if anybody in this room this morning claims to being a Christian. Now let's stop there. How many of you in this room claim to be a Christian? Raise your hand. Good folks, your lifestyle better back it up. We come to verse 18 in James. He's imagining that there's some Christians who might say, you know what, you have faith and I have works, and that's just a matter of emphasis. You have your faith and I have my works, and both of us are going to go to heaven. There are multiple roads to please God. James understood that mindset already existed back then, and God, through His inspiration, led him to make this statement, and he challenges them by saying, show me your faith apart from your works. James says, show me. How could a person show their faith without his works? It's impossible. If you claim to be a Christian this morning, then I and your brothers and sisters have a right to ask you to prove it by looking at your lifestyle. If your lifestyle contradicts who you claim to be, you are sadly an impersonator. You're not an imitator, you are an impersonator. You are impersonating someone, Jesus Christ, whom you have no intention of living like and talking like and walking like. If you claim to be a Christian, your lifestyle better back it up. There's one exception. Nobody in this room is perfect, are we? So if you look at me long enough, you're going to find my flaws. And if you look at you long enough, I'm sure we'll see your flaws as well. But the truth is, thank God for His grace. Now, If somebody in this room came up to you this morning and said, "My health is of great importance to me. Personal health is a high priority in my life, and I believe that health is one of the most important things we ought to have," then you might ask that person, do you eat right? Do you exercise? Do you get proper rest? Do you ever go for a checkup? You see, a person cannot say, "Well, I believe my health is of great importance," and sit around all day eating Taco Bell. The two don't go together. I don't care how good those nacho fries are. James continues his challenge by saying, "I will show you my faith by my works." James does not say, listen carefully, "I will show you works instead of faith." Rather, he says, "I will show you my faith by what I do." What James is talking about is the works of faith, those acts of love that we do because our faith drives us to have that compassion in action that motivates us to do rather than just say. Former President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, in his book, Why Not the Best, said that one of the turning points in his life was when someone asked him this question: "If you were arrested for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you?" That's a great question. If you were arrested for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Is mere belief in God sufficient? No, it's not. And to answer that question, in verse 19, James goes on to say, even the demons believe and they shudder, they tremble. They believe in God, and that makes them tremble because they understand the majesty and awesomeness of God. In Matthew 8:29, we see how demons acknowledged Christ, the Son of God. They cried out, "What have you to do with us, O Son of God?" Did you know that the devil is one of the greatest theologists ever? He knows theology backwards and forwards. He knows a lot more about the Bible than some of us do. He believes in the existence of God. His own demons believe and tremble. But here is the defining difference. And I hope this is the defining difference between you and Satan or one of his demons. Demons are well informed. They've got the knowledge. And a lot of Christians today claim to have a lot of Bible knowledge. A lot of Christians are well informed. But what should be the defining difference between a demon and you is not only are you well informed, but Christians are transformed. James says, just saying I believe in God is not enough to get you to heaven. Someone has said, it's probably one of my favorite quotes, a lot of people are going to miss heaven by 18 inches. You ever heard that? A lot of people are going to miss heaven by 18 inches. And you say, what does that mean? That means that they believe with their head, but not with their heart. Our faith must result in our transformation. In Matthew 7:21, Jesus said, not all who say to me, Lord, Lord, will have a place in my kingdom. Now, through our good works, Those good works alone cannot save us, but when we are saved, we must be producing good works. In fact, I love the devotion this morning before the Lord's Supper, because Matthew 5:16 very definitely says, "Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and glorify your Father that is in heaven." So after talking about this demonic faith for just a moment, informed but not transformed, James talks about the kind of faith that all of us need to have, and that is dynamite faith. In verses 20 through 26, James explains faith that is dynamite, which is the true saving faith. He says that type of faith is actively at work. It's based on God's Word. In fact, it's here on your outline. In order for our faith in God to be considered dynamic, dynamite faith, if that's the faith that your life is characterized by, it must involve these three things. It must involve, number one, head. In your mind, you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. You believe, you have faith in God. It's in your mind, but not just in your mind, it's in your heart. It drives you as an individual. It motivates you to grow from the worldly standard to becoming transformed day by day into Christ's standard. And it doesn't stop there, because it goes into your hands. Think about it this morning with me. James in verse 20 says for the second time, faith apart from works is dead. Let me ask you a question. How useless are your hands if you are dead? Think about it as we look at Abraham, verse 21 through 24. God promised a son to Abraham when he was 75 years old, right? Abraham believed God's promise, and faith gave to him the righteousness he needed. God had promised Abraham that through Isaac he would have more children, numerous than the sand of the sea and the stars of heaven. Then he asked Abraham to sacrifice the son Isaac on the altar in Genesis 22. Abraham had faith in God. Therefore, he was not afraid to obey God, no matter the cost. In fact, in Hebrews chapter 11, 17 through 19, it indicates that Abraham believed that God could even raise Isaac from the dead. In short, Abraham proved his faith by his works. And then the second example, in verse 25, we have Rahab the harlot. In Joshua chapter 2, we read that Rahab was a prostitute in the city of Jericho. And Israel was about to invade their promised land and take the city of Jericho. And Jericho was the first and most intimidating target. So Joshua sent spies into that city. They ended up at the house of Rahab because they thought that it would not arouse suspicion for strangers to go to the house of a ill repute woman, but they were mistaken. The king of Jericho got word that the spies had come to the city and were at the house of Rahab. The king immediately sent men to search for the spies, but Rahab hid them and helped them to escape. Because of her faith, proved by her works, her life was spared when Jericho fell. By the way, a lot of people have asked the question about Rahab. Was she a believer? Rahab was already a believer of God. of Israel before the two spies ever came to her house. Was she a good person? By no means. But we know that the word about Israel and her God had come to Rahab and other inhabitants of Jericho before the spies ever even showed up. And Rahab believed that word because in Joshua chapter 2 and verse 11 she said this, "When we heard of it, our hearts melted, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below." That sounds like a pretty good profession of faith, does it not? But in both cases, in Abraham and Rahab, they were not saved by faith plus works, but by faith that works. In verse 26, the last verse for this morning, James repeats for the third time. It must be pretty important for him to repeat it 3 times, right? "For as the body apart from the Spirit is dead, so faith apart from works is dead." Faith and works are like your body and your spirit. You take the spirit out of this body, the body is dead. Likewise, your life, your faith, without the evidence of works is dead. It is a dud faith. Because what it does, it reveals that your heart has truly not been transformed by God. The last thing this morning, and then the lesson is yours. I want us as brothers and sisters to take some time this week to examine your own heart. Examine the way you've been living. Now, none of us are perfect, I know that. But is the way you're living your life, if someone watched you, and they are watching, trust me, right? If someone is watching you, examining the way you live, would they say about you, they have a dynamite faith? Or would they say, what a dud? In youth groups around the country, we've often sung a song called "Light the Fire." How many of you know that song? Here's the key. God has already lit the fire of your faith. Now, just like that firework, that dynamite, when the end of your life, the end of your fuse is gone, will God say, your life was dynamite? Or will He say, what a disappointment, what a dud? When God lights my firework, I pray that my life is dynamite in His hands, an instrument of peace. We can help you this morning to help your life to transform from the dud life to the dynamite life. Let us pray with you. Let us help you. Whatever's going on in your life right now, to transform, to help you to grow beyond that dud life, to having that action faith that knows that there is something that God wants you to be doing with your life, and you're going to search it out, and you're going to find it, and you're not just going to talk about it, you're going to do it. Maybe you're not even a Christian this morning. That spark is being lit right now. What will you do? Will you come down this morning? Will you be baptized into Jesus Christ? And that fire is lit and you are a burning flame in the body of Christ? Or will you walk out and simply say, maybe some other day? It's your choice. Whatever we can help you with, let's do so as we stand and sing together.